Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm Ashley Smith. Today, we welcome a very special cellular healing doc, Dr. Jim Bentz. Dr. Jim is one of Dr. Pompa's HCF Platinum practitioners, and he is here to discuss his experience as part of this growing network. Dr. Jim practices the multi-therapeutic form of chiropractic care called neurological integration, also known as NIS. It is a system that allows a practitioner to detect and correct neurological signaling breakdowns between the brain and the body and is soundly based in current neuroscience. We are excited for you to hear Dr. Jim's story and learn about how he implements Dr. Pompa's Platinum program into his own practice. But first, I'd like to share just a bit more about Dr. Jim Bentz. Dr. Bentz graduated from Palmer College of Chiropractic in 1984 and has been in practice in Washington State since 1985. His practice is focused on functional medicine and functional neurology, and he has been the North American trainer for neurological integration systems since 2014. Dr. Bentz is passionate about empowering his patients to regain and maintain their health. He has also been an HCF Platinum member since 2016. And to the doctors and healthcare practitioners who are listening, please stay tuned at the end of the episode if you are interested in learning more about this incredible program. This is going to be a great episode. So let's welcome Dr. Bentz and Dr. Pompa and get right into it. This is Cellular Healing TV.
Dr. Jim Bentz is our guest today. You know, you're actually a very special guest because you're one of these doctors that I talk a lot about, Jim. I talk about these cellular healing, cellular detox doctors that we train across the country and the world. And I talk about it as a growing group of people who do all of these things that you all hear on Cell TV. I mean, Dr. Jim does the intermittent fasting. He teaches his clients and patients these principles, diet variation, the cellular detox, all of it in a multi-therapeutic approach. So you're going to hear today about this from a clinical perspective, what's going on in Jim's office. But Jim also does a very special form of chiropractic care that you all need to know about. And I'll tell you, Jim, I'll give you a little kudos here because we were doing some training here at the house at our mastermind, and we had a table up there, and everyone was lining up for you to work on them. That means all of us doctors, and I missed it, man. I missed the table. So y'all are going to hear about this special form of chiropractic that Jim really is an amazing expert. And I'll tell you, when you put that together with this multi-therapeutic approach that we do with the detox and all of these ancient healing strategies that you learn on the show, this is going to be a show to watch. Dr. Jim, tell us your story, man. I mean, how did you get into this? And I have so much respect for you. I really do. So tell us your story.
Well, thanks so much. It's just such an honor to be here with you today. If we go way back.
Now, Jim is 100 years old.
That's right.
So, he looks really good because
I feel I look good for 100.
We appreciate
So it's interesting. My dad was a dentist. And he got very interested in dental health way back in the 1960s before people really, I think, understood how important the mouth was to our overall health.
Oh, man.
And so, I remember when so this is kind of, you'll appreciate this, Dan. He used to, when we were kids, he did amalgam fillings just like dentists did back then, right? And he used to bring mercury home and let us play with it and stuff. So thank God for true cellular detox now, right? Because, when he found out it was around the early 60s, and what happened was that he got this letter from OSHA and said, look, you dentists, you're using mercury. You need to dispose of this as a toxin, as a class 1 toxin. And my dad goes, well, wait a minute, we're putting this in people's mouths,
right.
So he was actually.
By the way, on that, it's because dental offices were identified as being like the number one problem with the environment, how much mercury was going in the environment. Still to this day, this is a major unsaid issue, even though OSHA has made some major adjustments around it.
Yeah, well, he was, when he started kind of looking into it, and he was just like appalled. It's like, I never learned this in dental school. And it wasn't, I don't think, widely known how toxic mercury was back then.
Mhm.
And he found Dr. Hal Huggins when Huggins was just starting to teach dentists how to properly remove those amalgam fillings, right?
Yeah.
He was in his first class. And I remember he came home and he took all his kids down to the office one by one and removed all our amalgams. But he knew how to do it the right way.
Yeah. Thank God.
And he put gold foil in, and I still have those gold foil fillings in my mouth. They've held up for a lot of years. But he was also very interested in got very interested in nutrition, and he began actually testing his patients nutritionally and started recommending nutritional supplements. The end result of that was that he got called up in front of the medical board a couple times for practicing medicine with a license. And of course, it couldn't make it stick. He was just using, supplements. There were whole food supplements, right? And but what was happening was that the patients were going back to their doctors saying, I went to see this dentist. He put me on these supplements, and I'm feeling a lot better. And that just kind of torqued them. They got upset about that. So, we didn't have sugar in the house, thank God. It was a rare thing for us to see. My dad would buy these 50-gallon things of organic wheat, and those kids would have to take turns going and grinding wheat for my mom's whole grain bread. So, we were really lucky in that we were raised in a very health conscious family.
Yeah, I was raised the same way. My mom made everything, right? And it wasn't like, she still used white pasta, but the pasta, white bread, but we made our homemade bread. We, did all that. We made everything in house. Far different. Didn't have glyphosate, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But yeah, I never went to fast food restaurants. It was just something I put it this way. I can remember the times I did. That's how rare it was. So
I remember my dad would get every Christmas, like the local Pepsi bottling company would, I don't know why they did this, but they would send a case of 7-Up and Pepsi out to all the dentists and doctors in town where I grew up in Wisconsin. Yeah, and so that was a one-time year.
Well, it's brilliant, because if you can get them using it, they won't talk bad about it.
Exactly. I think that was it. But the long and short of it was that, I was interested in health from an early age. And then I ended up going to chiropractic college. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin with a degree in biology. And then it took me a while. I was in my early 30s when I went back to chiropractic college, and it was the result of an injury that I had running, and a chiropractor was able to help me out there, and it just made sense to me when I started reading about chiropractic and understood about that idea of innate intelligence and how intelligent the body was, and that the body could heal itself. That really spoke to me. So I went to Palmer College. Graduated in 1984, set up my practice. I'd always wanted to live in Washington State, so I moved out here, set up a practice in 1985. I've always been interested in nutrition, like I said, but so I'd taken some courses with some other functional medicine people, and there's lots of brilliant people out there, but we move ahead to 2015, and I'm in Hawaii at an NIS seminar with Hank Williams.
Oh, Hank's been on the show.
Yeah, Hank. And so I've known Hank through that work that we both have done over the years. I've known Hank quite well. And we were out for dinner, and he said, you've got to check out Dr. Pompa. And interestingly enough, I'd already started kind of following you online a bit. And he said, you combine that work, his work, with what we do in NIS,
Yeah.
you're going to hit a home run. And boy, it's really true. So I came to my first seminar in 2016 in Atlanta, and I remember I was thinking, oh, I'm just gonna check this guy out, right? Well, by the end of the first day, I was
one of us.
Where do I sign up? Right? Because I could see that you had things that I'd not heard from anybody else in that functional medicine world, and things like the intermittent fasting and the diet variation. I mean, and because everybody else was just talking about supplements, right? But you were offering such a broader range of strategies. I knew immediately I had to dive into that work. So
you've been just a wealth of knowledge within our tight group to so many of us. So we so glad to have you. Let's talk about some of those things. I think it's really important for people to hear, because they hear these things on the show, but kind of hearing some live experience, I think, is better. Let's start with the cellular detox. What did it mean for your practice? You add that, because one of the things I always say, look, you said it, the innate intelligence has the ability to heal. How few functional medicine doctors today are actually focused on removing interference. And that's a pet peeve of mine, right? Because they're focused on giving more vitamins and minerals and trying to balance pathways. And I'm like, look, some of that's necessary, some of it's good, but ultimately I didn't get my life back, by trying to balance pathways and, giving supplements. It didn't work. I had to remove interference, right? And, likewise with the chiropractic, you're moving interference off the nerve system. And ultimately that gives that innate intelligence the ability to heal, right? And so I call it, that's subluxation in the chiropractic world. Yeah. Chemical subluxation is with the cellular detox. So putting those two together, I think, is a health center of the future. And that's the name of my seminars. Talk about that.
Well, there is no doubt to me that, certainly removing that neurological interference is key.
Yeah.
However, it was interesting. I could have two patients that would present very similarly. In other words, maybe the same general age, similar symptoms. One would do really well just with the neurological work. Mm-hmm. But the next person is it's like, what's going on? They're not responding like I thought they should. And it turned out to be a toxin issue.
Right.
And so, when we joined up in the Platinum group, we went whole hog into the detox, and we put, I think in the first year, we probably put over 100 patients on the detox program, and the results were just fantastic. I mean, we had patient after patient say, look, it's just giving me my life back. So I began to understand the power of that. That was really the first thing we implemented was the detox. And then, yeah.
Good. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think one of the big problems too, though, is I think there's a growing understanding and need for detox, but everyone's falling into the traps. The traps that, I had went through even in my own healing years ago, of all the detox that's detox, right? It's the 10-day cleanse, it's this. And, all of these detoxes that are out there, it's not cellular detox. Real detox has to be at the cell, and you got lucky and kind of fell into the right thing right away, but most don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And we, the thing I really appreciate is that you're always talking about going upstream. And to me, that's the brain. I mean, the brain is where it's at as far as I'm concerned.
You know what? I mean, honestly, if you don't detox the brain, people don't get well today, because this is where the epidemic is. So I'm so glad you said it, because that's the key. People get their lives back in the brain phase, right? I did it for years, and that ultimately is how I got my life back. And when you look at why people have brain fog, lack of energy, hormone problems, it's all here.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Absolutely. Our friend Zach Bush, I watched I don't know if it was his.
We have a training with him tomorrow, by the way.
I know. I'm really excited. I'm really excited about that. But I was watching some presentation that he'd done recently. I don't know if it was the Nourish Vermont or one of those, but he said something that really rang true for me. And he said, we've got to quit making this mistake of separating these body systems out. Like you've got a digestive system, you've got an immune system, you've got a nervous system, you've got a musculoskeletal system. He said they're all one, they're one system. And to me, it's kind of like that the brain orchestrates all that. And it's kind of like the conductor for the symphony, right? To get them all to work together. And that's why I think we've seen some of the results we've seen with the True Cellular Detox program.
And this may be a good place for you to talk about the type of work that you do with that, right? The NIS, the Neurological Integration System of Chiropractic. Because I think that's the unique work you're doing. You're doing the cellular detox, which is detoxing the brain. It's a prep phase, body phase, brain phase. So talk about that, because I think that's another reason why you're seeing such amazing results.
Yeah. So I came across NIS in 1997. It was developed by an osteopath in New Zealand by the name of Alan Phillips. Now, interesting enough, he had spent some time studying with George Goodhart back in the 70s. And so those of you who don't know, Dr. Goodhart was kind of the pioneer of what's called applied kinesiology. It's really using muscle response testing, which is really a neurological test, right? So a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people who do muscles testing really understand that they're actually doing a neurological test when they do. He went back to New Zealand and kind of developed that on a little different pathway. And what he realized was that the missing piece in that work, which the applied kinesiology is brilliant as far as kind of a diagnostic tool, because you're getting direct feedback from the patient's nervous system. What he realized was missing was the brain piece, and that they weren't getting the brain to reconnect with these breakdowns, these signaling breakdowns in the body. And that's where that work really shines. So basically it's just a system of investigation. It's like, what does the brain understand through through the sensory nervous system, right? So it's really identifying what doesn't the brain understand about what's going on in the body. In other words, where have these signals been disrupted or broken down in the body? Now, as chiropractors, we look at that through the spine. But there's a lot more going on, especially in the brain. I remember, I don't know who it was, one of my college instructors said, 90% of the nervous system is above the atlas, right? So I'm not disparaging chiropractic in any way at all. I think it's amazing stuff, but there's so much more to what's going on in the nervous system than just what we can detect in the spine. So he's figured out a way to investigate how that signaling is working between the brain and the body. And then he also figured out how to reestablish those connections through a very gentle thing called integration, which is just a simple stimulation of an area of the brain. And I got to tell you, it's funny. The first time I saw that work, it was at a seminar, the first seminar I went to in Las Vegas. And Dr. Phillips had come over from New Zealand and was teaching. And the first day of the seminar, I'm going, this just seems too good to be true. I mean, how can you just do this little tap on somebody's head and make these powerful changes? And I was a little skeptical, to tell you the truth, until the second day of the seminar, when he got me up on the table. And I had been having, over the years, the thing that got me into chiropractic in the first place was the fact that I'd had some right sciatica. I had problems with my right SI joint. I used to be a runner, ran track and cross country in high school. I was out for a run one day and my right leg just gave out. It just collapsed. And a chiropractor was able to help that. But over the years, it would flare up from time to time. And I always had this nagging pain in that right SI. So the second day with Dr. Phillips, I don't even remember what he did. It's 22 years ago. But I got off the table. I was like, oh my gosh, that pain is gone. And now I understand that what he had done is actually there was a breakdown in signaling between the joint proprioceptors in that right SI joint and the brain. So the brain really couldn't get control of that joint the way that it should because it wasn't getting proper sensory feedback. And when he just restored that circuit, all of a sudden, the pain was gone. And the thing is, the joint would always lock up.
Yeah.
And what was really happening was the brain, or the intelligence of the body, was actually doing that as a protective mechanism, right? So again, it just reemphasizes the brain, the intelligence always knows what it's doing. Always knows what and I've really come to trust that a lot over the years, how amazing that is. So the other thing that's really brilliant with the NIS is how it can impact the immune system. And I've heard you talk about it, how sneaky some of these infections, especially viruses and parasites, they can hide out in the body, and they go really pretty much undetected by the immune system, right? And we know, and I've seen it happen with the detox, where at a certain point, all of a sudden I don't know if these things just have been, I think what my theory is that they've been dormant. And then as you start taking their protection, their cover away, their metals that they're hiding behind, they start to activate again.
Yeah.
It's like you'd have chicken pox when you're a kid and wake up with shingles 50 years later, right?
Yeah.
Same sort of thing. And so the other area where this work shines is really getting the body to recognize those infections and address them.
Yeah, that's amazing with the detox, right there, and then it's reintegrating the brain with the body, for goodness sakes. I mean, that's what the detox is doing. So putting the two together is magic. How does this method compare to the AMIT, AMIT method?
Yeah, I'm familiar with.
I know Bueller, Dr.
Yeah,
Bueller.
I know Craig, and I'm familiar with his work. Yeah. And it's good work. I mean, it's brilliant stuff. I think the difference is that we're getting direct connection to the brain rather than going through the structural system to get that change. So, our friend Jeff Knight does both, right? He's studied with Craig, and he's done the NIS work, and he finds that it's just a quicker, more sustainable correction when you go directly to the brain and get it to fix the problem.
Yeah,
so that's the thing that I love about that work, is that you're just getting the brain to be aware of what's going on, and it again, it's that intelligence, right? It immediately understands what has to happen. It's just that they can't see it.
Well, and I have to say this, right? I mean, when we pull heavy metals, whether it's aluminum, lead, mercury, out of the brain, the brain compensates with certain pathways, right? We
Absolutely.
Get chemically sensitive people that, all this is better. However, the brain's still running down a pathway because it set up a pathway to survive. And that neurological pathway is still going, creating a symptom that doesn't necessarily have to be there. Do you find that this work, really helps the brain basically, it's called neuroplasty, basically remake a new pathway?
It is. Yeah, it does. It's really brilliant there. And the thing I love about this work is that, Dr. Phillips continues to research. So every year he's presenting his new research. He's been really delving into what's happening at the cellular level, which I'm really happy to see.
Yeah.
Because he's looking at what happens especially he's looked in the last couple of years at what happens with DNA and RNA, especially with RNA transcription and translation, right? So if you get an error in that DNA code, translates right into an abnormal protein,
Right.
an irregular protein, which really doesn't work very well. So that's another thing he's looked at, is that pathway and how you can impact that, which has been amazing.
Well, we need to get him at the seminars because, unless you're dealing with both interferences, the chemical and the structural, it's.
Yeah, and then that, and then adding in the other strategies that you teach, has been amazing. I mean, one of my patients, and he's also a friend of mine. His name is George, and so he began fasting end of last year, and he just went. I mean, he really got into it. But I'll tell you, the thing that was amazing was to see the changes on his lab work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. His doctor, he was working with a functional medicine doctor remotely in Kentucky, and he'd been with her for a couple of years. But he'd come in and he'd ask me my advice about what she was telling him to do.
Wow.
And she was really worried about him because, and she had reason to be. I mean, his fibrinogen was up, his A1C was elevated, and he had some other concerning things on his blood work. And after I think he did an 11-day fast, then he did a 5-day fast, and
Wow.
And his last blood work was so much better. She was like, "What have you been doing?"
Jim, don't you find, I mean, I always say that, like, the chiropractic adjustment releases innate intelligence from the brain to the body. Fasting harnesses.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're completely relying. I mean, once again, we're so different than the functional medicine world, right? It's like the two things, we're talking about three things here we just mentioned, right? The detox, removing interference, right? Done the right way. I mean, that's really important. It's not the cleanses that people are doing out there. The chiropractic work, reconnecting the brain to the body. And now we're talking about fasting, probably the oldest therapeutic tool on the planet, right? And it's who's doing it, right? But we're putting it all together, man. I mean, it's like, that we get excited about it.
Oh man, I tell you, when we see this all the time now. I mean, patients will come in and it's like, and they, when they go back to their doctor and get their blood work done, or we do their labs for them now a lot of times. And the changes are so profound. I mean, and just symptomatically, I mean, we're seeing patients just their energy go up, their brain fog lift, their sleep is improved. I mean, I don't know really of anybody else who's doing what we're doing.
No.
And it's really fascinating to me that because I've had this happen several times where their doctor will look at their labs after they've done some of these things, and they'll say, "Man, what are you doing? I mean, it's just like things look so much better." And they'll tell them, and they have it's like, well, I guess just keep doing what you're doing, but you'd think they'd be wanting to know more, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I have to put a shameless plug in. I rarely do this, but the next seminar is November 2nd for practitioners only, November 2nd through the 4th in Las Vegas. And y'all practitioners watching this, you need to be there, man.
Oh, yeah, we're going to be there.
I mean, we need more of us. I mean, we do. And I'll have my team put in a video or a link or something to get there. But, Jim, we need more of us. I mean, that's the whole goal, right? And, spreading the message of where real detox is. But it's the multi-therapeutic approach, man. I mean, it's not just the detox. Who's fasting people like? And it's not just the one fast. We have several fasts we're doing. It's putting it all together that the epidemic needs it. You can't get people well today with just one of these things. You have to put it together.
You can't. I mean, I've been in practice 33 years. And back in the 90s, you know, a simple chiropractic adjustment would often turn things around for people.
That's right.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
And you talk to chiropractors anywhere, and they will tell you the same thing if they're honest about what they're seeing in their practice.
No, it's true.
But yeah, it is. It's you know, my heart just I go through airports and I see these people, and I can tell there's just so many people that are suffering needlessly because they just don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And so what we see ourselves as educators, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
we want to empower our patients. I don't want them to be dependent on me, right?
Yeah.
I want them to be empowered to take their health back into their hands.
Oh man, yeah, you're so right. I always tell people, look, my goal is to teach you this process.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and therefore you can do it long enough to actually matter and make a difference, lasting. You know, that's it. You know, it's like, I'm so glad to hear you echo that. So people are like, because he told me that. So that's great.
Yeah, we, you know, and to me, if you're in healthcare and your practice isn't booming, this is what you need. You need to understand this because there's no shortage of sick people out there. Listen, I practice in a town of 15,000 people. Okay, it's north of Seattle. There's 12 other chiropractors in this town, right? I have the busiest practice in town, no doubt about it. And we're 100% cash. We don't deal with insurance at all. So, and here's the thing. People are willing to pay out of pocket when they understand the value of what we have to offer. And really, I mean, for them to spend a couple $1,000 with us, I mean, people go out and buy a new car, they spend $40,000, $50,000, right?
You, man. Yeah.
And then you get them well for a couple $1,000. I mean, that's a bargain.
I mean, people don't have the value, unfortunately, until the bottom falls out. Typically, right?
That's so true.
They have the value of a car every day because they need it to run here and there, and prestige or whatever else the value is. Who knows? But when I got sick, I'd pay anything. I went into debt, almost $200,000, because I knew I couldn't function this way. I'd rather have been dead.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And live my life the way I was living it. And, I talk to people most every day, and that's where they are. And then they have the value. Well, I have to ask this question, what just in the recent month or two, tell our viewers some incredible case stories that you may have had.
We just had a patient start with us about a month ago. She was, her doctor said, look, you're a full-blown diabetic. And they wanted to put her on, the usual drugs, metformin, and she said, I just don't feel like that's the right approach. So she had been a patient of mine in the past. I hadn't seen her for a while. She came back in, and so we started working with her. In 1 month, her A1C went from 10.9 down to like 6.2. She's lost 20 pounds, right? I mean, she is so excited about what's happening. We had another person, another woman, could not lose weight, and she was doing everything right. I mean, she was eating a good diet. She had gone in and out of ketosis, but she just couldn't get her weight wouldn't drop off. We put her on the true cellular detox, and it just turned everything around.
Yeah.
Before she even got to the brain phase. I mean, it just all of a sudden something happened.
Her body was so loaded with toxins, driving cellular inflammation. Her hormones, cells weren't even hearing her hormones. Can't lose. I mean, how often do we hear that story? I mean, how much of diabetes, is caused by toxins? There was an estimate of 35%. I believe if you add the autoimmune component, it's 80%.
I totally agree with you on that. We had another patient. She brought her son in, and just struggling with learning problems. I mean, he wasn't in special ed, but he had his own instructional aid assigned to him because he definitely couldn't keep up with the other kids. And so we did NIS on him, and we also just changed his diet around. Got him off carbs and sugar pretty much, and his mom, they brought him in last month, and they had him do tutoring over the summer just to catch up, right? And she said he gets through his homework now in a half hour instead of 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so he's like, this is a new kid, it's like, and the poor kid, I could tell he was just frustrated. It wasn't that he was stupid or that he had a lot of interference in his system. And
this is 1 out of 5 kids.
Yeah, I know.
Disabilities today, and it is neurotoxic driven. It
Yep.
is. You add that to the fact that they're subluxated. I mean, and then we're drugging them instead of getting just the cause, which we're talking about. It's so apparent. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you can almost guarantee results just because it's so obvious what's happening to the generation. It's sad.
It is. And that to me is basically when they came back in, I mean, his mom was in tears, and I was in tears. I mean, it's, you just think about, to me, just to see all the suffering that's going on out in the world, just because people don't know. I mean, that's we need an army. We need I mean, we've got some great practitioners, but boy, we need a
Jim.
Yeah.
You got probably 4 vaccines as a kid.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I got. Right. So today you're talking about 70 some vaccines. Okay.
Stunning.
Yeah. By the time they're 18, up to 80 some vaccines a child is given today. And the corruption from these protective bodies of ours is absolutely ludicrous. Vaxxed, I've had Andy, I've had people on the show, talking about Vaxxed, the producer of Vaxxed, on the show, and, talking about the cover up from the CDC. And there's now Andy Wakefield is coming out with a second film that's talking about cover up that I'm telling you, you can't make it up. I mean, jaw dropping what's happening right now in this area. My point is this: when we look at the fact that these drug companies do not have to do safety studies on vaccines, every other drug they have to do safety studies on except vaccines. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars to bring a drug to trial because of all the trials and safety studies, right? Oh, and you can still be sued if it's hurting people, right? So it makes them really make sure it's safe. Vaccines, not since 1986, no safety studies, and they can't be sued. They can bring these vaccines to trial very easy with far less money and with no risk. This is a problem, and the point is that we're creating toxic children beyond, the vaccines and beyond. And I'll tell you, the answer is not more and more medications stacking up. The answer is what we're talking about right here, Jim.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes I feel like we're a voice in the wilderness, but I tell you, you doing this every week and getting that message out, there's no doubt. I mean, one of the first things I tell my patients is they got to subscribe to your site.
Well, listen, I appreciate that, but honestly, I bring experts, from around the world like yourself, and we just got to keep hammering it because we're still a lone voice, man.
Yeah, Yeah.
Hey, how can people reach you, find you with all the expert stuff and amazing stuff you're doing?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give you my. So for the NIS, so I'm actually the trainer for this work in North America, and so our website is www.nisusaseminars.com. So it's nisusaseminars.com. The site for Dr. Phillips in New Zealand is www.neurolink, NEUROLINK global.com.
What about your site for you?
And my site, my practice website is, it's kind of long. It's FidalgoIslandHealthCenter.com. So FIDALGO Island Health Center. So we actually, I practice it's an island, but you can drive to it. But we sit where all the ferries head out to the San Juan Islands up here. So it's a beautiful spot. Yeah, they can see my what we're doing on our website there. So.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. And folks, we're actually, I hope this is aired before this, but we have a group fast. If you go to Fasting for a Purpose, September 23rd, we start another group fast. Join us, and my team will link the seminar for the doctors and practitioners watching as well. So, Jim, thanks for being with us. So, awesome, man. Just great stuff you're doing. We appreciate you. Our whole growing doctor group loves and appreciates you.
Well, thanks so much. I mean, this has been, getting to know you and doing this work it's really revitalized my practice in such a big way. It's been
awesome.
So much fun.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Bye.
Hey, this is for you doctors and healthcare practitioners who are interested in learning more about all of these strategies that I've been teaching: the fasting, the diet variation, the intermittent fasting, and of course, all of my cellular detox work from the body phase, prep phase, the brain phase, all the way through. Look, we are putting all of this together, and there's a growing group of doctors around the country who are doing this. We call it a multi-therapeutic approach. And by the way, this is what's needed to get people well today. The scientific literature supports it, and our clinical results are proving it. So if you've been watching these videos about how, and you've been hearing the testimonies, by the way, and this goes far beyond fasting. I mean, obviously we're building up to a fast. This is what we teach. Look, I believe everybody needs this in their office. So if you're interested, underneath, click yes, and we'll be able to send you some more information about our seminars and what you need to do. As a matter of fact, we'll even have somebody reach out to you. You can ask them all the questions you want. So we have a seminar coming up November 2nd through the 4th. But please, if you're interested, reach out to us, click yes.
Well, that's it for this week. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. All health practitioners can go to the link on the screen to hear more about Dr. Pompa's HCF Platinum program. You can also find the link in our show notes. We'll be back next week and every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. You may also subscribe to us on iTunes or find us at podcast.drpompa.com. Thanks for listening.